Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. And if you're just joining us, we just finished up on a article where a board of a particular association and a homeowner just were in loggerheads over something that was so small nobody would give.
Over $25.
$25, and nobody would give any ground at all. We want to talk next, and this is going to be directed more towards those of you who are on a board. We want to give you some sage advice on how to make effective board decisions, not to get into that situation. And then, of course, a little bit later on, too, we were following a story, and it comes out of Chelsea, Massachusetts, and it's the $20,000 question where a homeowner association gets billed for $20,000 from the city of Chelsea, and we'll talk about what went on there.
And I want to mention that if you have a question, a comment, or an opinion about anything we're talking about, or if you want to suggest a topic for us to talk about, give us a call on our hotline, 952-224-2668, and we will bring your issue to the next show.
Yes, and what I'd like to throw out, too, for the first person that will call our hotline and that we get pick up on, and they leave their name and their address and phone number for us to contact them. And if they are on the board of a homeowners association, they will be given one free year's membership into Community Association Institute.
Oh, nice.
CAI.
Wow.
That's a couple $100 value.
Yeah.
It is great. You'll get a magazine that comes out, I think, bi-monthly that they do.
They have great publications.
Great writing and great topics.
Yeah.
And then to be a part of that organization and all of the resources that they have for homeowners and homeowner boards, it's great. And so this is for someone who's on the board, the first one that will call that number, and give that number again, Tony.
952-224-2668.
Yep, and you got to leave your name, address, phone number, and then the name of the homeowner association.
Okay.
We'll call you back. You'll get a free membership, 1-year membership.
Nice, very nice.
And before we get going, too, I'd just like to remind our listeners, we've got another great resource for you, and that is our bi-monthly newsletter called What's New. This last week, we received an email from Jennifer from Minnetonka and a Mary Jo from Hopkins who called in just to say thanks for the radio show, and now they've signed up and are starting to receive the newsletter, and they think it's a great resource to have. So
nice.
Give us a call at New Concepts, 952-922-2500 during the week. Ask for Courtney. She'll make sure that you start receiving your newsletter. Well, let's go on with this next piece here. And this is a guide to making effective board decisions. And I think it's important that we give correct and appropriate authorship to this. A woman by the name of Pamela Dittner McEwen. She's a freelance writer for the Chicago Tribune, and she wrote these 9 specific steps or premises on how a board can make great decisions. And I got to say, this is really a thoughtful piece.
I think it's very good, too. And what's interesting is it would really apply to any type of board you might be serving.
Yes, it is. In this particular case, I read the bio on Ms. McEwen, and she talked about herself as just being a freelance writer, sort of a generalist. However, she was in the process of going through seminary to become a pastor.
All right.
And so I imagine she's probably had to deal with a lot of nonprofit boards.
And if she hasn't yet, she will.
Yeah, but I would imagine that's how she came up with some of these points.
Sure.
And so our hats off to Pamela Dittner McEwen for what she had published in the opinion page of the Chicago Tribune. This is from September 9th.
Okay.
And the first item that she mentions here is she says if a board is going to make be effective in making decisions, number one, they need to identify the true nature of the problem.
That sounds so simple, doesn't it? It sounds like something one would intuitively do, but that ain't necessarily so.
No. I mean, sometimes people, what they want to address is the result or the outcome that's taking place, but it's not necessarily, that's not necessarily the cause.
Yeah, okay.
I think with most of what we deal with in an association when there's a headache, I think it's basically cause and effect. You know, the effect is taking place because of a specific cause, and sometimes we don't rightly understand what that is.
Sure. Give us an example.
Well, one that's near and dear to both of our hearts is rentals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is the cause of having, or the effect of a bad renter who's having disregard for rules and regulations, and to homeowners is renting the cause of that?
Is that the cause of the problem?
Of the problem. I don't think so. I think the cause is something else. It's not the fact that you're renting the unit. I think the cause is a particular landlord who is not in tune and who is not being responsible for guiding the renters that they have in the property.
It's not practicing good management,
That's
rental
right.
management. I have another example.
Okay.
This comes up all the time in homeowners associations, and that's picking up dog poop. Dog poop is a problem. And so often the association says, okay, the problem is dog poop. We got to come down hard on all our pet owners. We got to find them. We got to track them down. We got to test the poop for DNA. And perhaps it's not the owners that live on the property whose dogs are leaving the mess behind. If you're on a path, if you're on a system of trailways, it could be neighbors walking through your property who are letting their dogs
and I suppose the real cause is feeding the dogs.
There you go. But taking it back even a
step further. But you're right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So those are a couple of good examples of you have to identify the true nature of the problem.
Yeah. Let's deal with another thing she talked about, a guide to making an effective board decision. So identify the true nature of the problem. Number 2, she said, review your authority to deal with the issue. I like this.
I do too. That's great advice. Are you even authorized to handle this problem as a board of this community?
One thing that comes to mind in that issue, don't you think, would be the area of noise?
Yes.
You know,
definitely.
I think everybody automatically assumes that the association, you're right, you said it earlier, they liken them to the landlord.
Yeah.
And they think that if, as the landlord or this overseeing body, they can say to someone, you better knock it off or I'm kicking you out, but they don't have authority to kick them out over that.
They don't even, I think the complainer doesn't even think what is it I want you to do. They just want someone else to be as mad as they are about the situation. So if they've got a noisy neighbor, they want to go to the board and say, I want you to jump all over him and make him stop. The question they don't ever ask is, how is one supposed to make them stop? As you said, the association has no authority to evict a homeowner, and you don't want them to have that authority.
Whereas if you, in that particular case, if you looked at the city has the police. The police has city ordinances
That's right.
on people disturbing the peace.
That's right.
And the city can go ahead and fine the owner of the unit. And so now that gets put on the property taxes.
Yeah.
If it's not taken care of. And if it continues on, the offenders can be taken to jail.
Yeah, that's right. So in this case, in a noise issue, I always tell people the association wants to know if there's a problem. And certainly I'm always happy to generate a letter to a homeowner and say, hey, you know what? We've received this complaint and we've advised your neighbor to call the police if it happens again. I mean, there's no harm in the association knowing what's going on, but the association has no authority to make it stop.
Yeah. Let's deal with another one here. Another effective guide to making good board decisions: establish priorities.
Okay, what do you think she means by that?
By establishing priorities, to me, I think what she is saying is that you can't necessarily cover everything that needs to be done. You can't necessarily give, or should you give everything the same weight? of importance.
Yeah.
You know, so I think you need to be careful.
Yeah.
And realize, you know, is this a priority for us to spend a lot of time on now?
How is it a $25 problem or is it a $2,500 problem?
Yes. One of the things that happens is that I think a lot of people on a board will deal with an issue as it comes up, because it was on the agenda and in this order, and they'll just deal with it. Whereas the appropriate thing might be to say, let's table this because this small issue here of finding someone $25 may not need to take an hour of our time because we've got a retaining wall that has fallen down and part of the property is spilling out onto the road. Maybe we need to deal with that. And take the time to deal with the bids that we have coming in. So prioritizing.
Establish priorities.
Yeah. Well, we need to take another break. When we come back, let's continue on with this, a guide to making effective board decisions, only right here on AM 1280 The Patriot. We'll be back after this.